Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we explore the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. In this, our fourth season, we're looking at Kenneth Branagh's 2011 film, Thor. I'm Matthew Fox from the Star Wars Universe podcast.
And I'm Andy Nelson from the Next Reel Film Podcast.
And today we're talking about minute 60, which begins with Thor slowly coming to terms with this crushing realization and ends with a shot of the hammer unmoved. Joining us in the show today, sadly for the last time, but hopefully we'll have him back for more podcasts later, we have Andrew Darowski, host of the Disney Animation Minute Essentials, and Joe Darowski, host of the Protagonist Podcast. It's been so great having you both. I'm curious for people who have a lot of experience with this kind of minute-by-minute analysis, what's kind of been your take on like seeing these 5 minutes through this lens?
Even though I've got, a good chunk of minute by minute experience, I haven't had actually a lot of like fight sequences. And I don't think any like person to person fighting. I've had giant robot mech suit fighting people with you guys in the past.
That's right.
And so it was a little bit interesting to like get into the fight choreography and seeing like the editing, pacing and all of those kinds of tricks. So that was kind of a new experience for me, which is always fun. It's nice to do different minutes and to just have a different experience, in every different movie, and you take a little chunk of minutes and you're like, okay, I do have to admit something to you guys, even though I was the one that chose these minutes. My favorite minute of the movie is actually the next minute. And I'm probably going to want to talk a little bit about it. But because I didn't want to talk about the rest of that week as much as I would have like enjoyed talking about the fighting and grabbing the hammer, but some stuff in the next minute where you see Heimdall and some color stuff and I think a really good transition between like colored nebulas on the screen to colored neon lights on the screen. Mm-hmm. I really like what happens in that, but ultimately this got the most of what I most wanted. I really wished that all the minutes were shifted like 2 minutes forward from now, ideally.
In a perfect world, yeah.
The first time I came on the Marvel Movie Minute with Iron Man, I think I really wanted to do minute like 57 through 63, 62 or whatever. It's like, nope.
Yeah, so I'm in that kind of situation.
I think one thing that's really interesting with the granularity that you get in doing these minutes is those moments, like we're talking about, like where it's like, wait, which way is Thor turning? Like you don't pause, like when you're watching the whole scene, like you really don't pause. Like you get lost in that, and it does start to make clear like how much movie magic is done through the editing to just kind of like move you along with the story and make you feel what you're supposed to be feeling, make you feel exactly the right thing, and the logistics of like, can Thor actually go through the tunnels that way? Don't really matter. That's not the key of the storytelling unless you are looking at a movie 1 minute at a time. Then you start to like get really caught up in those kinds of minutia.
Well, I also really love movies by minutes because even just listening to them, but also sometimes like in the moment while you're watching them, there's just discoveries that happen, and that can be a really, really fun experience. I remember Joe and I were on one of the seasons of Indiana Jones Minute just for 1 minute, and we saw something, and all of us were like, I've never ever seen this before. Like it was in Last Crusade, and it's like, oh, the Grail Knight like walks out with Indiana Jones basically. Like he's there as soon as Indiana Jones is at the front of the cave. He's like, he's just standing there in the background. He's totally right there. Wow. And all of us are like, wait, he is? What the? Wait, why is he? He totally is there. And so you have like these discoveries that come, and all the fun bits that come with noticing that there's tanks of chemicals for no apparent reason.
Right.
So true. So true. Yeah, I mean, a running theme of this, a lot of our episodes have been Andy and I watching a Loki minute and then not like going back and forth on what is Loki's motivation in this. And I feel like I have such a higher appreciation of Tom Hiddleston as an actor because we've done this kind of.
He's amazing in this. It's kind of a shame that we don't get any of him in this week.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, it's his origin story as much as it is Thor's. And we'll get into that.
And Hawkeye's.
Yeah, well, and Hawkeye's. Yeah, and Hawkeye's. We'll get into all of that right after this quick break.
If you've heard of Patreon, then you know a lot of podcasters use it as a place where their fans can support them by becoming patrons. Well, what a lot of people don't know is that Patreon and Memberful are one and the same. We use Memberful, and what it actually does is it allows us to build our patron support platform right into our own website. So if you've been thinking of becoming a patron to our show, but you weren't sure about it because when you go to Patreon and you search for Marvel Movie Minute, you don't see us, just know that we are, in fact, using their platform. You can learn all about it at memberful.com. They really do make it very easy. And if you'd like to support us, visit truestory.fm/Marvel Movie Minute, and you can find out right there what we offer to our patrons. It's only $5 a month, or you can get a discount if you join at the annual rate. Thanks.
Friends, I hope you are properly appreciative that you are in the presence of a prophet, because yesterday I started talking about a moment that hadn't happened yet of this great God eye scene of Heimdall and Odin looking down, and guess what? It starts this minute. Clearly, I was jumping the gun a bit. It's hard to get minutes confused, but now that we're actually at this minute, what do you all think of this great moment we get of like Thor looking up to the heavens? And it to me, it's clear like he thinks he's looking right at Odin and Heimdall, and they're looking right back at him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
it's really sad.
Yeah, and it really does feel like you're saying he is communicating with someone in this. Like as he looks up, he's not looking into the void. He is staring at someone directly that he knows is watching them at this moment, and he's trying to express his anger and frustration. And Chris Hemsworth really reaches a nice guttural level to to express all that.
Yeah. Like I love is that I couldn't put my finger on exactly what the scream is. It's not that he's screaming in anger at them. It's not that he's screaming. It's everything. It's this whole, all of the emotional weight of what's happened ever since his father yelled at him that he's been holding back and not wanting to deal with just all comes out in that scream.
It is intense. Yeah, it's intense, powerful, tragic, painful. There's a lot in it. And I mean, Hemsworth gives it all. Like everything comes out of him in that moment.
Like it, just as far as like a human being making that sound, like how many takes can you do before you're like, I literally can't. My voice cannot.
They brought in a cart of like throat coat tea to help him get through this moment. You know?
I think it is very effective, and this is a testament to Chris Hemsworth like acting it pretty well. I think since everyone's discovered that he can do comedy, they kind of want to do only comedy with him most of the time, but I really like his dramatic sequences.
Oh yeah.
Like this or his kind of dramatic monologue in Infinity War. I really enjoy that stuff. And this one is great because the acting that he has to do is that he is incapable of expressing anything coherently, right? It's not just that he's angry, like he's not yelling at them like, hey, let me in. He's just like, I don't understand. I don't understand. And I'm frustrated and I'm sad and I am angry, but like anger isn't the main one, right? It's not a furious yell. It's I don't understand and I can't even say why. I can just yell vaguely.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like if it was going to be a word, it'd be something about how he doesn't understand.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've had young kids when they're trying to get you to understand something and like you're just not comprehending what it is and they just reach a meltdown stage, like he just jumps straight to meltdown stage.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because there's no understanding. I don't think any understanding even starts until the very, very end of this minute when the Triquetra, that part of Odin's spell appears for him on the side of Mjolnir. And I think that's the clue that he finally gets, but I mean, it's
I am blocked.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
And again, I don't think I would have ever caught this without the minute by minute. But way back in the first shots of Asgard, or when we see Thor in Asgard, we commented on that just a small little moment, but you clearly can see that his mother is very indulgent of him, and it like, we can talk about like spoiled children being terrible people or whatever, but like children are spoiled because their parents are spoiling them. And to me, it doesn't excuse what, a jerk Thor has been for many points of this movie. But so much of what I see is like, he has had parents who've never given him consequences before. And then, and so like on the one hand, you're like, yeah, he deserves some of these consequences, but also like, of course it's heartbreaking to him because no one ever said no to him before. And that's a failure of parenting as much as it is a failure of him.
He deserves these consequences, but he also deserves them. Whatever vague number of years ago it was that he was a child. Hard to say on Earth years what that would have been.
So, some 1,000 years ago.
In his terrible 200s, you know?
You're definitely right. Like there's in psychological theory about parenting and everything, they talk about parenting styles, and there's all this work that's been done into kind of quantifying like these quadrants based on how permissive a parent is, or how, like being emotionally responsive to the point of being permissive versus being demanding, potentially to the point of being authoritarian. And so you kind of have this dynamic where there's, okay, like, are you emotionally responsive and receptive to them, or are you instilling consequences and having demands for behavioral expectations and achievement expectations and all that sort of stuff? And so if you break it down into a quadrant, there's these different parenting styles, and you'll see articles that try to talk about like the pros and cons. It's like, it's fairly clear. Like there's an effective one where you are emotionally responsive, but also, instilling consequences for behavioral issues and having certain demands. And then there's, being permissive, which is, high response and low demand. And then there's authoritarian, which is high consequence and low response, which is kind of what he's getting a taste of right now, where like there's no communication about like, I want you to understand this lesson. And so he's kind of feeling that authoritarian approach. And then there is a fourth quadrant where you're low on both. But that's effectively not parenting. It's completely disengaged, where you are giving them neither emotional support nor consequences for behavioral issues.
Yeah. It's funny. One of my favorite hobbies is coming up with podcast ideas that I will never have the time to execute. But for a long part of my life, I was a pastor, and one of the things you learn, is as you're doing a lot of family counseling, so you learn like all that kind of theories on that. I now want to like do a podcast analyzing all sorts of like superhero families through like family systems theory, and talk about where did the parents go wrong that led to this thing with, let's talk about Jack Murdoch and his parenting style of young Daredevil.
I mean, that's a really interesting thing to bring up, especially as you start getting into later stories and dealing with Hela. And wondering, okay, so did Odin's parenting style of Thor shift because he, something switched in him as far as what he was doing and how he was parenting Hela and all the decisions that they made together and in tearing through everything. And then, so I don't know, part of it makes me wonder, like, was Odin's style very much less hands off? Because, he was too involved in doing all the stuff with Hela at his side for so long. And so Frigga did end up doing largely the raising. I mean, we have a moment with Odin and the boys. So obviously he was doing some parenting, at least the storytelling sort of things. But it does make me wonder, like, did he back off because he felt like he pushed Hela to where she ended up? And I know I'm going way too far beyond our movie here.
Well, yeah. You're also making me want to like bring in the time travel of Thor and his mother moment. But we're really shooting way, way beyond the mark.
Well, but also, I mean, tying it back to like the Shakespearean themes that we know were so important to Branagh, like part of what's happening there is Odin has this double loyalty situation, and Loki's the only one who ever wanted to point it out, where on the one hand, Odin wants to be a good father to Thor, but Odin also has to be the one who is deciding if Thor is worthy of not just like the family business, but like ruling this whole realm and all these 9 realms. And so, yeah, there's so much going on there.
Yeah.
And then we do get, Heimdall doesn't respond, Odin doesn't respond, but we get this wonderful look from Jane, and let's talk about the fact that, like, the way it's laid out, I have no idea how she's seeing any of this. But, like, before we get to that, what do you see in her? Like, that look on her face. What is she thinking in that moment?
I think it works if she's just responding to the sound he's making. It's like, oh, like something's wrong. She's recognizing distress.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like you said, you can't find a sight line that would make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen her since the opening minute, right? We haven't cut back to her at any, or did we?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
No, not since the phone call.
There was a scripted moment that they didn't end up including, but yeah, she hasn't been back.
I guess to me, the way they shoot her face, it looks like she's so intently staring at something that I think we're supposed to think she's watching, even if that doesn't make any sense logistically. But you're right. Even if she's just hearing the scream,
Yeah.
like she knows that he has failed, I think.
I mean, I guess that's what you would do. If you were there waiting for them to get in and get out, you would be kind of looking for any sign of them on their way back out. So, I mean, I guess she's just kind of hoping that she'll see him at some point.
And if you hear that scream instead, I think you can get the same emotional response.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And then we get a shot of Coulson where, again, maybe this is because I'm reading too much into it because of what I know of Coulson, but I feel like he's having a real moment of sympathy for the pain this person's going through. Is that what you all see?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think that Thor is actually staring up at Coulson and just screaming at him.
Just screaming right at Coulson.
Right.
And Coulson's just like, oh, this is going to be a problem.
That's right. He is a drunk townie.
I was really hoping something would happen.
Yeah.
Like, that's why he's sad. It's not a sympathetic sadness. He's like, oh, man.
Yeah, I hear that.
Now I just have to do paperwork on this. What a drag.
Hawkeye though doesn't look at all. He's just like, I don't get to fire my arrow. I'm bored.
All right, put my arrow down.
I think we have thoroughly determined, and I think we were talking about this off air, that all of the stuff with Hawkeye was shot after the fact when they decided that they wanted to replace the sniper with him. Because all of the stuff of the sniper running to the bucket, it's all shot in a way where it's not necessarily visible who it is. And all the stuff of Barton, it's all shot as if they could have totally done this after the fact when they were likely in the early stages of shooting Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
I'd heard that rumor. I just had never taken the time to dissect the scene as closely as we have in this one. And anytime you see Renner's face, it could be just in any warehouse or parking lot.
Yeah.
With rain and a spotlight.
Nothing has to be on set at all.
Yeah, and it's funny. My primary fandom is Star Wars, and we often talk about how, like, kind of feeling bad for the actor who's in the Darth Vader suit in the original movie was saying all the lines and had no idea that James Earl Jones, his voice was going to be dubbed over. There are all these jokes about, what happened when he went to the theater. And I kind of I wonder for this guy, like, was he like, hey guys, I'm in a Marvel movie. It's only for 5 seconds, but I'm in it. And then like, wait a minute, where's this Jeremy Renner guy come from?
What about my close-ups?
Yeah, I hope they gave him a little bit of.
That was me running.
Notice.
That was me running to the thing. Everyone.
Yeah, because it was not Jeremy Renner getting into that bucket.
I'm the first actor to play Hawkeye.
There you go. I'd put that on a resume.
That's right.
And then we just, again, there's just the way the shots are set up is so evocative. Thor goes to his knees and just not a word is said. But it's so clear he is defeated. He is broken. Mm-hmm. And there's just that great slow-mo shot of the rain dripping from his face. I'm like, even as I describe it, it sounds so cheesy, but it works so well.
I think the music really does a lot of the heavy lifting to make it not feel cheesy.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, overscoring can absolutely increase the cheese, but they definitely are finding the right level of, making it clear you're being played to, audience. This is what you should be feeling, but it doesn't feel like you're going overstepping in terms of the musical cues.
And the slow-mo sometimes, like, it can be a little much. And Branagh was using it in a powerful way earlier in these couple minutes, where when Thor sees Mjolnir, he's like striding toward it to grab it and grab the handle and to pull it. It's all like this powerful moment. It fits in context with Patrick Doyle's music. Everything just has this kind of powerful feel. And but then we have a moment when he's screaming in the last minute, which is slow-mo. That one very much feels like a Peter Jackson, Lord of the Rings sort of thing, because that was straight out of all those movies. I don't like that one as much, but this moment when it's that defeated Thor on his knees, like this moment of the slow motion, like that works exceptionally well, because I just feel that, just like I felt the power in the previous ones, now I really feel that defeat here.
Yeah.
I think the music, like from the previous minute and into this minute, does such a good job of switching gears 3 full times, right? It's the big triumphant Thor theme, and then it goes into this really like low bass failure theme, and then it goes into still the standard Thor theme, but it's like sad violins kind of
there's a little
version.
Hope.
And so it goes triumphant and then dark and then sad. And I think that's a really nice use and balance.
Yeah. to me, the emotional arc of Thor over the course of this movie is so interesting because I feel like this is the moment where there's a really synthesis of like the arc that he thought he was going on and the arc that we as an audience are going on. Because I think this is maybe not as true for people who already love the character, but I think for a lot of folks, like, Thor is not an appealing, I mean, he's a great looking guy. He's charming, but he's a bully and a jerk a lot in the first half of the movie. And, it's funny. I think, like, for me, at least watching it, I've heard this from others, they want you to be rooting for him as he's going to try and get the hammer back. To me, this is the first moment where I'm actually feeling very sympathetic for him. This is the moment where I'm like, okay, like, not that I like seeing, it's not a schadenfreude, I want to see him hurt, but like, you're having a humanity moment. You're having a moment of like connecting with what's happening. It's the wrong way to say it, but like, to me, I felt like pathos with him in a way I hadn't before for this movie.
Yeah, I think this is one of those moments that is going to be creating that bond with the audience more so than just saying, I like watching this character on screen, which, I mean, Chris Hemsworth is oozing charisma and could get by on, I like watching this character on screen in how he's going to play Thor with the braggadocio and everything. But after this, I think there is that greater investment of, I want to see the transformation actually take root, and I care about what the next phase is.
What's amazing. I mean, so here we are, an hour into the movie, and I feel like we have had an hour of very cocky, arrogant, and certainly charming. I mean, he is very charming. The way that he speaks, it's very honest and straightforward, and he really pays attention. But he is cocky and arrogant, and I still am convinced that even if whatever What If said, that if Thor, whether Loki was adopted or not, if Loki hadn't caused all of this to happen and Thor did get coronated, I think we still would have had Party Thor on the throne.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he is a challenging character to be with for this long, but it's the charisma that really gets you through. But this moment that we're in right here, this nadir of his whole story, I mean, it's just like, it's going to go uphill and it's going to be just, I don't know. I love the way that it's taken its time to get us to this point with this particular character.
I think that's so true. And I think, to me, this moment is kind of helping to illustrate, like, what is, I think, the great irony of this movie, and especially of Loki's story, is that Loki sees the flaw in Thor that no one else sees. And Loki does all this in part to point it out so that people will say Thor shouldn't be king, Loki should be king. And what winds up happening is Loki starts Thor on the journey that allows him to overcome his fatal flaw and become the worthy king. And it's just like, I mean, I want the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern version of this movie entirely from Loki's perspective because, like, it's so bitterly ironic for his character. But that's a whole other discussion.
So it makes it so great.
Yeah. And so then we get this last moment where the Triquetra, which is like the three-piece knotwork.
Triquetra.
That we know is a symbol of Odin and is used often in Norse mythology and the like, both in the real world and in this world, appears on the hammer. And Thor very clearly notices it. What's the significance of that happening?
My sense is that he just recognizes it as something that symbolizes Odin did something to Mjolnir. I can't remember, one of you two pointed out earlier, there's a block now that Odin has created with Mjolnir, and he can't access it now. And that's the moment, I think, when that was the final piece that Thor needed, was to see that appear, so that now he knows, oh, there was a lot more to my banishment than I initially had realized.
I think it's just that signal that there's more to this than me not having my powers or something. Like, there's a reason, and it's going to be Odin based reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like seeing that symbol lets him know that it's not a glitch, right? Like this is something that's by design.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Well, we've had such a great discussion about this. Are there any other last points about this minute or just these 5 minutes in general that any of you want to bring up?
I do just want to say I think Thor's kind of an odd duck in the MCU as a film. This one where it's I don't think it's anyone's lowest tier or top tier film for a lot of people. It's just kind of there. It has a different, unique flavor, which I think for a little while Marvel lost. Letting every film have their own unique flavor, and they're kind of refinding it. It feels like of late, and I like this Brana-infused Shakespearean drama, that we get in here. And I think it feels weird to say that it was like a gamble to do Chris Hemsworth. In retrospect, it feels very odd to say, but it was.
And Tom Hiddleston.
For like your cast, you're anchoring with, people who have not done the blockbuster film circuit at all at this point, and you're saying this is going to be one of our cornerstone franchises for the Avengers, that we're going to carry this, both those being such key figures for what's coming in the Avengers, that if this had been miscast, or things had gone awry, like the MCU wouldn't be the MCU. So even though it does kind of have that stat, the stature that's a little, in the middle, I think is where a lot of people would put this Thor movie. It really is foundational for so much of what comes forward.
Oh yeah.
As a reminder, it does have Academy Award nominee Jeremy Renner in it.
I mean, 3 different characters from this movie wind up having like their own properties. Thor gets a bunch of his own properties. Loki had his own TV show and is going to get more. And not that I think this movie establishes Hawkeye on the path, but he's getting his own show now too. So.
Well, and even what's her name? That's in WandaVision. All of a sudden, the character's name is escaping me.
Oh yeah, Darcy.
Darcy. Yeah, I mean, Darcy is like newly prominent in the MCU, and rumors abound of potential future use of that character.
Stellan Skarsgård gets, he comes back a couple of times, and and Natalie Portman's going to be back. So,
and Agent Sitwell too. I mean, Agent Sitwell figured into the whole Hydra thing.
Yeah, and Coulson, like this has a pretty substantial footprint overall.
It really does.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, in many ways, it's a real introduction to S.H.I.E.L.D. itself, because until now, S.H.I.E.L.D. has been the thing helping our characters. Here, it really is we talked about much more of an antagonist. And just in terms of also Skarsgård, by the time this releases, it'll be a couple months later, but I just saw Dune a couple of days ago, and wow, seeing him be the evil Harkonnen, like, I was just like, but you're the nice doctor who after doing the minute-by-minute analysis, that was just so shocking to me of like, yeah, Skarsgård's got some range. That's not a bad actor.
Well, it reminds me when I watched the whole movie with my wife, we were talking early on, and I was just like, oh, little baby Chris Hemsworth, you had no idea that 10 years from now, as they're making it, 10 years from now, this is where you're going to be. It's like, oh, Tom Hiddleston, you have no idea that 10 years from now, you're going to be, the biggest deal. And then it was kind of weird. It was like, Natalie Portman, you have no idea that 10 years from now, well, you haven't been in like a ton of movies, but like you're still a household name.
Yeah. You're not going to be remembered for debating the romantic elements of sand anymore. So that alone for you is a plus.
But yeah, like just about everybody, it's like, oh, wow, like everyone's got a big career coming out of this. If they didn't have one going in, they kind of come out of it with a pretty substantial career.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, Andrew and Joe, it's been such a great thing having you both on this podcast. For people who want to find more about you, I've asked you a lot about like podcasts, academic careers, all the rest. What's one last thing about yourself that you'd want fans to know, or a way to find, your a karaoke video you've got online somewhere, or a great performance you did on a trivia podcast? What's one more thing you want fans to know about?
I really don't have anything else. I mean, I wonder if like, I should try this sometime. If you search my name, like I have guested on dozens of podcast episodes at this point in various things, a lot of Movies by Minutes, but a lot of other podcasts. So, I mean, just type my name into your podcast search system and see what comes up, I guess.
Awesome. And Joe, what about for yourself?
Just outside of my superhero research, I also have done some projects on TV shows. So I've got a book that I co-authored on Frasier and another one on Cheers that are floating out there. So if sitcoms are more your style, then I've done a little work in that area too.
Nice. Well, awesome. Yeah. Thank you both so much. I really hope you're going to be back for later Marvel Movie Minutes. I'm probably going to try to twist both your arms to get you on the Superhero Ethics podcast and on my own selfish needs. But most importantly, it's been so great having you on here. Thank you so much. Andy, thank you so much as always for making this all possible. And to our fans, you make this what it is. So thank you so much and have a great day.
Until next time, true believers.
Marvel Movie Minute is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson. This season's music is One Last Ride by Martin Puringer. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, consider doing that for this show.